Welcome back to the Do More podcast. It's such a privilege to have you join us. Thank you for all the listens, the likes, the shares. Just so amazing to have all of you on our journey as we have real conversations with partners, friends, colleagues, really just trying to understand the work that the Do More Foundation does, but more broadly, what's happening in the development space. And that's why we have Tshepo here today. So thanks for joining me.
Hi,
Such
Jess.
a thrill, actually.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So in true Do More style, have to have a playful check-in. So here it is. Welcome. Check in, exactly. So we're talking about advocacy and advocacy is all about having something simple, right? Simple slogan, simple motto, something people can jump in and tag into. In a parallel universe, if you were to have a signature greeting that was a dance move, what would it be?
That was a dance move.
You can answer that at the end of the podcast.
Okay. It gives me time to think.
Exactly. Today we're talking about advocacy. We're talking about the national advocacy work of the Real Reform for ECD. I know you're also part of the Equality Collective team, and at the Do More Foundation we've had such an amazing partnership. So we'll just dive in.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share with our listeners a little bit of context around what is the Real Reform for ECD and how it fits into the advocacy landscape of young children.
Yes. So, as you've said, my name is Tshepo. I am from an organization called the Equality Collective, which is based in Nqileni, Eastern Cape. And the Equality Collective has multiple streams of work, but one of our streams of work is in early childhood development. And then one of our roles then is to be the secretariat for the movement called Real Reform for ECD. Real Reform for ECD is a movement advocating for holistic, well-funded, inclusive and quality early childhood development services for children in South Africa. And how we are involved is, as a secretariat, we coordinate the logistics and the coordination planning of the steering committee of Real Reform for ECD, which is made up of 10 to 12 NGOs, RTOs, and ECD forum representatives who sit on the steering committee for Real Reform and identify gaps within the ECD sector, particularly with regard to policy, regulation, and legislation, and create campaigns around filling and addressing those gaps within legislation related to early childhood development services.
And one of those gaps was nutrition, right? So focus for 2022, 2023 was the Right to Nutrition campaign. Yes. Could you give us a bit of context for that campaign specifically? What was the purpose and who was the target?
Yeah. So to put it quite accessibly and for the listeners to know what that was about, I will start with explaining children at ECD centers. ECD centers, these are where children are learning, play, early learning stimulation and things like that. So previously known as creches.
Sure.
And children are there for the whole day at most cases. And what we find is that practitioners or ECD practitioners, ECD centers are unable to provide adequate nutritious food for the children. And the research shows us that nutrition is very, very important for the growing child and for them to be able to learn and grow at ECD centers. So currently we find that early childhood development centers are struggling to provide adequate nutrition. There is support being given by the state through the 17 Rand per child per day subsidy. However, of that 17 Rand per child per day, 6.80 Rand is ring-fenced so that can support nutrition for each child.
Have you ever tried to eat for 6.80 Rand?
I can't, not even maybe 10 Rand, 12 Rand, 6.80 Rand. And for you to think that it's going to be a nutritious meal. So practitioners end up just, making a pap and things like that. So the Real Reform for ECD movement recognized this as an opportunity to create a national advocacy campaign around how can we get food at ECD centers. So what we then did was start with a research phase of our campaign, because we wanted the campaign to be informed, evidence-based.
Sure.
And we looked at 3 particular areas of research that could inform the campaign. The first area was looking at the right to nutrition, particularly early nutrition. What does the law say about nutrition? Is there a state duty to support nutrition? Because that's sort of our point of departure.
Sure.
If we're going to ask the state to support nutrition, are they even mandated to?
Yeah.
And then the second paper was looking at what constitutes adequate nutrition. So this paper is looking at, when we're saying children should be eating, what is it that they should be eating? It's not just anything, right?
Sure.
And practitioners need to know what it is that is adequate nutrition.
What is adequate?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the third paper was looking at, and this was a more complex paper, I think, from our perspective, how can we get nutrition to the centers? How can the state support nutrition at the centers?
Wow.
We know currently that there is what is called the National Schools Nutrition Program, which supports nutrition at primary schools and high schools of particular quintiles.
Sure.
So the state is already supporting nutrition at places, institutions of learning.
Yeah.
So we're just saying that should be extended to early childhood development centers, or create a separate ECD nutrition program for ECDs, because we also appreciate that the landscape of ECDs are different. They are usually at someone's home, within communities, whereas schools are on government property.
Sure.
So there's differences there. However, that third paper was looking at how that can be done, possibly.
Great, and we can definitely link those papers into the show notes, because they're really interesting research documents. Then the second question is around adequate versus affordable.
Yes.
And how we tackle that, because we're getting that question all the time. Like, how do we tackle this challenge of affordable nutrition?
In the second research paper dealing with adequate nutrition, you said you will link it. So I really implore all the listeners to go read that, because that paper particularly deals with what is adequate nutrition. We also found, even in those differences, there's also the difference between right to nutrition and access to, with which is in the Constitution, which are also differences that we have to engage with.
Sure.
So this question that you're asking about adequate and affordable, the affordable part for me sounds more about sort of food security being at the heart of that question. Here we have to be guided by evidence of what is adequate and what outcomes are we expecting from adequate nutrition. So in South Africa currently, we find that there isn't a lot of research on children's growth indicators as they're influenced by nutrition. So a lot of our research had to look elsewhere to see how much research is out there and how is nutrition affecting children. And then if we can draw from that, we can then see, okay, this type of nutrition provides for this type of outcome. And then from there we can pull out what is adequate. In South Africa, the Department of Health has the National Nutrition Guidelines,
Correct.
which is a good guiding document for us to use in South Africa.
Yeah.
So if we are looking for what is adequate, we already have the framework in South Africa through the National Nutrition Guideline.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we face, though, is that there hasn't been a rollout of training around how those guidelines can be used.
Amazing.
So that's also one of the recommendations that came out, that we can ascertain what is adequate nutrition from what the state has provided, but practitioners don't have that.
Yeah.
At most, they're just given a menu to paste on a wall, and that menu doesn't necessarily manifest onto plates.
Yeah.
So that is one of the challenges, that the definitions of adequate is there, but it's not within our communities.
So amazing. Thanks for breaking it down like that. Sorry, keep going.
And then on the other side, in terms of affordable food, access to food in South Africa is a problem, right?
Sure.
Food security in South Africa is a problem. But what also comes out is that there are multiple ways of getting food to centers. So the financial aspect of it doesn't necessarily have to be a barrier where collaborative work is taking place and creative thinking is taking place. So we have seen initiatives like community vegetable gardens, ECD centers pulling together community members to manage a vegetable garden in the community or at the center. And that can make adequate nutrition accessible and affordable. We have had the private sector, big grocery stores being approached by ECD forums. So within communities, practitioners will pull themselves together and create an ECD forum. And then they can then advocate for themselves towards grocery stores in their communities that can give them food, which are at discounts and things like that. So work like that allows for us to see other opportunities. And you're not just one ECD practitioner going to a supermarket to buy, but we can work together within communities. So yes, there is an issue of food not being affordable.
Yeah.
However, we have found that there are ways around that within our communities when we are coming together.
Very cool. Oh, it's in some ways, such a reassuring answer to know that actually creatively there are things we can do. It may not solve all the problems, but and we're seeing that actually through some of our parent support programs and initiatives, parents really taking agency of their nutrition and the nutrition they're providing their children. And that's amazing. That's development, right?
Yes.
Watching these parents say, actually, we have agency when we go to find food for our kid, child, wherever that is, through a store, through a spaza shop, through a local vegetable garden. How do I advocate for nutritious food?
We have found that's a big point to bring in, parents' roles in nutrition.
Yeah.
And the Right to Nutrition campaign by Real Reform also stresses that parents have the primary responsibility for their children, right? The state is only stepping in where parents are unable to provide that kind of support. And we've seen that where parents are involved, for instance, through lunch boxes, where parents are educated about what to pack in a lunchbox. So instead of just packing fried Vienna, and this and that. They can be educated about maybe pack fruit and like popcorn, a healthy sandwich, and things like that. So bringing parents into this conversation is very, very important, and creative ways like the lunchbox drive, or just hosting workshops and educating them on early nutrition and the importance of that. Because early nutrition, understood correctly by parents, brings ECD into their own home.
Absolutely.
And they understand their role in early childhood development as is recognized through nutrition.
100%. So last question for you, which I'm sure so many of the listeners are asking themselves is, how do I get involved? How do I join? Advocacy is about collaboration. Absolutely. How do we add one more seat to the table?
Yes.
What does that look like?
We welcome collaboration. Collaboration is at the heart of what Real Reform for ECD does. Our steering committee is the manifestation of collaboration.
So cool.
So please reach out. You can visit our website at www.ecdreform.org.za. We'll leave that in the show notes.
Sure, can 100% do that.
And like I said, we have this Right to Nutrition campaign, which is our most recently launched campaign. But you can also get involved in many different ways. We have the local government campaign, the Standalone ECD Act campaign, which is a more long-term campaign that we're working on. So go to our website and find out how you can get involved. Also in your own community, find out where ECD forums are and find out how you can support ECD forums. You might support them through knowledge sharing, resource sharing, or even pointing them in a different direction, another direction where they can get help. So in your own community, there's something that you can do. I always say not everyone has a job, but anyone can find a duty. And I feel like in our communities, we can do that.
Very cool. So this is your call to duty.
Exactly.
Amazing. I'm so curious to know what your dance move would be.
Wow, you've been asking me so many questions I didn't even get to think. Okay, let me think. What dance move am I repeatedly doing now? What was the question? If it was in
a parallel universe.
Okay. This dance move sort of captures me. Whoa. I mean, Jess, the thing is, I'm not even a good dancer.
I mean, so I don't believe you.
No. I mean, I can move my body. I think I'll say this, as cheesy as it may sound, dancing with children.
Awesome. And
I like if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Cool.
So even when I'm facilitating workshops, at the beginning of the workshop, we all stand up and you do, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Love it.
And so, I feel like that's already sort of in my community of ECD practitioners, that is known as what I do.
So
to affirm some happiness.
Great. So for all of our listeners out there, you'll be clapping your greeting. That's amazing. Yeah. Thanks for playing along and having some fun with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Playtime.